So welcome to create a Scrapbook Live. I tell you, it's Friday, Scrapbook Live. Today is October 25th, and we are going to be putting together a zigzag border that is from the Creative Memories blog, from the Wonderful Day collection. I had lots of inquiries about this one, so it was really fun when I saw it last Wednesday on the blog, and I already had last week's Scrapbook Live planned, so I couldn't put it in last week. That's why we're doing it this week. So I'm very excited to show you guys, but I also wanted to show you other ways, at least one other way you can create a zigzag border. The way shown in the blog is a lot of fun because you're kind of piecing things together. It has a really nice visual effect to it with the way the paper, the patterns all go together. But there is an additional way you can do it that can kind of have the similar effect with maybe not quite as much intensity to the design itself or to the creation. So we're going to do both. We'll show you guys. If you've done anything with Power Hour, we've done something a little similar, not border style like we interweave them, but I've done the technique before. You'll recognize it. All right, so I'm gonna switch over to my overhead camera and we'll get started. All right, so what do I have going on here? I have the handout, and hopefully the numbers I put on the photos help you guys a little bit. So you can see they made it with the Wonderful Day collection. Things you're gonna wanna have with you, all right? I have some strips of paper cut into 1/4-inch pieces. There's a total of 6 different colors. Well, you just need some different pieces. So I'm doing Halloween inspired. So I've got some gold shimmer. I've got it's actually leaf green because I liked the way it looked. I've got some orange shimmer, eggplant, and black shimmer. So you'll kind of need those, different colors chosen. I will repeat the black in both borders. You can see in the original, they do have some white that is carried through on both borders or both zigzags. So that's kind of fun. And then I'm going to mount everything to the black. So where they use white stripes to mount white strips of paper, I'll use black. Now, before we dive too much into, I've kind of hemmed and hawed on how best to explain this because I want us to practice. Okay, before we take the time to make our strips of paper and adhere everything together and start cutting and working with angles and everything like that, I want to practice. And I would encourage you guys to practice too. What are you going to need? You're going to need some scrap paper that you can cut. And you want it to be double-sided. It's helpful if it's double-sided, all right? So I have just a scrap of out of the Booyah paper. I managed to cut it wrong. I wanted the stripe to go the other direction, so I'm just using this because I can show you 2 sides. All right, so I'm seeing a question about the audio breaking up, and if you're having problems with it, you may need to come back out and come back in. I'm not seeing anything at my end. If somebody else is having audio issues, let me know. Sometimes you have to leave the live and come back in. So what I want us to do here is if you've got some spare paper, ideally double-sided is helpful, okay? We're gonna go ahead and grab our trimmer and we're gonna cut this at 3/4 of an inch. Before we start cutting things where we've done strips of paper and fancy paper and blah, 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 we're gonna practice the concept of what we're going to be doing. Because I think once we practice that concept, it'll be easier once we have our strips ready to go. So 3/4 of an inch. I'm just going to cut one of them, just 3/4 of an inch. All right. Now, if you need directions, what we're kind of doing is outlined in step 3 of our directions. We just don't have strips of paper adhered to our 3/4 inch strips. So where they talk about, step 1 in the photo is them actually just putting the strips of paper on their 3/4 inch piece of paper. Where we want to focus in is step 2 and the picture 2. You're going to need your 13 by 13 cutting mat. All right. Your 13 by 13 cutting mat. If you did not already know this, we've got some angle measurements. We use 45 degrees a lot. It goes from basically the center out to the corner or corner to corner. 30 degrees and 60 degrees are on here, and we use those mostly when we are, I've talked about using them when we're cutting in the round. 30 degrees is where we start when we want to go. The 30 and 60 are where we want to start when we are cutting with the blue and white punches. border punches in the circle. But for the directions here, if we take a look at step number 2, or excuse me, photo number 2, not step number 2, it's photo number 2. What they've done is they've taken the strip of paper and they've lined it up on the 30-degree line. So where it says 30-degree up here, right there, you want to take that piece of that line or that angle and line your paper up. And then you just need to take a straight ruler or a straight edge, a ruler, something that has a straight edge to it. And you're going to line it up and you're going to draw a line. Now it doesn't really matter if you draw the line up here or you draw the line here. I will go ahead, because I want to follow what they did, I will do it over here. And you're going to line it up. Pick one of your straight lines. I am using 5. They maybe used the 6-inch mark. You just want to line it up on one of those straight lines. So you're getting your papers along the 30-degree line. Your ruler is along the top to bottom straight, and you're going to use your pencil and draw a line. This is your cut line. All right. Well, you can't hardly, it's not wanting to focus, but there it is. There's my cut line. Okay, so now we're gonna grab our trimmer and we cut it over here, but we're actually gonna rotate it around and we're gonna come up here, put it in our trimmer so that we can cut along that line. I wanna cut along that pencil line. What I'm doing here is I'm establishing my degree, the angle that I need to cut. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut. So I've got an edge, a cut edge. Now we need to cut 2-inch segments of this. So what we'll need to do is we actually, because there's no 2-inch mark over here, I need to rotate my piece around, stick the long edge out the right side of the trimmer, and then I'm going to line it up at 2 inches, the 2-inch line. It doesn't matter wherever you want to line it up, just line it up at 2 inches so that your angle is right along that line, that 2-inch line. Once you have that, you'll go ahead and you'll close your trimmer and you'll cut. There's one segment. I'm going to bring it down back to 2 inches and I'm going to cut another. Take the time to line up. You want these pieces to be as identical as possible. I want you to note that which side of the paper we're cutting. In these directions, we will need to cut, we will cut one strip with one side of the paper facing up, and then we cut another strip with the other side of the paper facing up. So here I have my orange stripe facing up, or excuse me, my stripes facing up. This last piece, you really won't be able to get, you can get 5 out of this, you really can't get 6. So this last piece here is going to be scrap. Okay, remember what we're doing here. We are just practicing this cutting technique. So then when you have taken the time to make your pretty strips of paper that they have you doing in the directions, you've already practiced this section so that you are making those cuts with confidence. All right, now I'm gonna cut one more 3/4 inch strip of paper because we will, each one of these zigzags uses 2 strips of paper. So you actually are going to be working with 4 total strips of paper that we will cut into these segments. So I'm going to cut one more 3/4 inch strip. This is my practice paper. So there's one more. This time, I'm going to flip my paper over. I want to work from the opposite side of the paper, just like they tell us in the directions. The second strip you cut, you will flip it over before you mark it, before you cut it. So I've flipped my paper over. I'm going to come back and repeat the same technique. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to mark my paper. Lining up at that 30-degree mark. I'm going to mark that straight line. Line it up on my trimmer and cut. I've established my line. I'm going to rotate it around because it's just easier to make these 2-inch cuts. And then I'm going to proceed to cut 2-inch segments. Always double check before you cut if you need to. I mean, I have to just because I'm talking it. We've seen before that I can't always cut and talk at the same time. Okay. Now what I've got is I've got 4 segments, side A and side B. When it comes time to make my zigzag, I actually will need, I'll put 1 segment on. And then this piece, I need to flip it over to create the next. Now, because I used a stripe, it doesn't quite match up. The patterns don't match up. So if I actually flip these pieces over, I can make them work with these stars. But what you'll see is that we need some pieces to go have the angle cut one way and one piece is cut the other way. And that is why they want us to flip the paper over when we cut the second strip. When we mark and cut the second strip, you have to flip it over so that you can have the patterns line up. And there you can see we have the continuous zigzag going. All right. So now let's go ahead and make our strips of paper. I've already got some 1/4-inch pieces cut. So I'm just going to use my base strip, which is going to be 3/4 inch wide of the black shimmer. 3/4 inch of the black shimmer. You are, once we make the strips, I'm going to make our base layout. They really do take you through directions here at the top, steps 1 through 5 or whatever it is here, 7, 8. You do need to create the base background for this border because it has to be mounted to something. It has to be mounted to your layout. It is not, you could just mount it to a strip of paper, like a wide strip of paper, but it needs to be mounted to something. You see, we have lots of strips. So I'm going to cut my strips, my 3/4 inch strips, 3/4 inch strips. I do think that it is easy for this particular technique, whatever color you want to use as one of your stripes to make that your base paper, then you're not trying to put 3 different pieces of paper on top of this 1/4 inch strip. That's just my opinion. Black worked out well for me. So if I had wanted to use a designer paper, I could have if I wanted that to be one of my stripes. So just a recommendation there. I see a couple quick questions. So Stephanie's asking about Tessa. She did not have a Simply Scrappy today. And so Betty's asking, how do we get the instructions? They are on my blog. You can go to, there's a link in the top of the very first, in the description of this live on Facebook. If you are watching on YouTube later, you'll see it in the description below in the YouTube. Thank you, Kelly, for posting that. All right, so I've got my pieces here and I'm just gonna set those to the side for the moment. I wanna build my background really quick. It's not gonna take very long. I'm going to be building my background on a piece of white cardstock. They do have us putting some strips of paper down to give ourselves a border. I'm gonna use this polka dot paper and we need to cut 4 1/2-inch strips of whatever paper you're using to build basically creating a frame. And I'm just going to cut 4 1/2-inch pieces. One more. And then these are going to get adhered around the edge of my paper. Now what I want to do is I'm going to put the top, I'm going to put the strips on the top and the bottom. This is like a quick, easy way to do the strips on here and give that mitered look to them. I'm going to go ahead, lay this on here, top and bottom. Or rotate my paper so I can see it a little bit easier. Top and bottom. Now, before I put on my left and my right pieces, what I need to do is come into my trimmer and I need to cut this on a 45-degree angle. Now this piece, I want this angle to go this direction, okay? They want it to angle in towards the bottom. So I'm gonna flip my paper over to the reverse side and cut the other edge, the other ending part, the other end of this strip. Flip it over, 45-degree angle cut the other end. And now when you put it on your paper, you're gonna have kind of that mock 45-degree angle. And I'll repeat this with my last strip. I'm going to cut 45-degree angle at one end on side A, flip it over, cut 45 degrees at the other end with side B facing up. And then both of these will get put in place. Now, I'm not going to worry about putting the rest of the details on here. There's more steps in here to create other additional elements to this layout. I want to focus on doing the border itself. But as I said, I needed some place to put my border. So I now have a base background here that I'll be able to come in and build that zigzag detail along the bottom edge of the border. Okay, we're going to come back to our strips of paper. I'm going to get my, gotta find it. I want my little, there it is, my silicone mat so I can run some adhesive down these strips. I'm going to pair, I think I'm going to pair the orange and the yellow together, the orange and the gold. Those are orange and gold shimmer papers. And the green and the purple will go on another side. Okay. I have 2 of these cut and I realize I actually need 4. So we'll go ahead and build some and then I'll cut more. I'm going to have the black be in the middle. I think that just makes it easier. You can tell my strips of paper are a little bit wider maybe than that 1/4 inch, which is fine. I don't mind if the black middle is not quite as even. It's just even along here, which is the most important, right? I'm gonna make the second one and then I'll cut 2 more strips of black and we will, and then I'll adhere the purple and the green. So we're making the strips. We've taken the time to practice those angled cuts. So after, you hate to take all this time, and not that these are hard to do, but we are taking the time, we practiced, so we're not going to spend time making something that we ultimately, hopefully we do not mess it up when it comes time to cutting it. The other thing you may have noticed is that, you don't have to use you don't have to make strips of paper. You can simply do it with the designer papers front and back. Definitely is one way to do it. We'll actually kind of circle back to that when for the second part of this demo after we do the blog version. Okay, need my black shimmer paper, and I'm going to go ahead and cut 2 more 3/4 inch strips with the black. These will work with my green and my purple strips. One thing when you put your strips on here is just make sure, you know, like I do not want to see any of that black poking out the side because I've got a white background. It's going to really stand out if it pokes out on the edges. So I want to make sure that I don't have any black coming through, or it's minimal if I do. I could have used a black background for the layout, but I thought the white was a nice contrast. And sometimes I don't like to be too dark with the layouts. The colors of the Booyah collection are pretty bright. So the big strips, the black strip is 3/4 inch. And then I am mounting 2 1/4 inch strips, one at the top, one at the bottom, and then you'll see about a 1/4 inch strip come through on the middle. Otherwise, you're going to want to use 3/4 inch strips of paper to fill up your 3/4 inch strip that will ultimately end up cutting into pieces. Okay, here we go. Okay, now it is time to go ahead and get your ruler back out, get your pencil, and we're going to start marking these. And remember, we still have, even though I've got a solid piece of paper here, I have a side A and I have a side B. Side B will not make it into the layout, but I'm going to treat this one as side A, so you'll see the stripes. And then when I cut my second one, I will cut it on the reverse, but then we'll be able to flip the pieces over and it will have the right angles, okay? So I'm gonna line this up here, grab my ruler, I'm on that 30-degree line. I'm gonna come in here, need to get my ruler in a spot where I can trim it. You don't have to be right at the corner. I mean, that final piece, the sixth, we get 5 pieces, we don't get 6 out of it. So if you're not quite perfectly at that end, it's okay. Oops. I'm going to cut it first, lining my pencil line up on my cutting piece or on my cut line, and go ahead and trim. And then it's a matter of coming back to those 2-inch segments that we did, just like we practiced earlier. This is also where I hope I used enough adhesive on my strips, on my little strips, so they stay attached. If they don't, I can just glue them back on. May have to come in and cut some pieces or attach some stuff. Okay, so there's my 4 strips. I guess you only get 4. You really just need 6, so 3 and 3. Now, I need to do all that step, but I need to do it from the reverse. So I'm gonna have side B, which is for me, the black is gonna be pointed up. You're working from the back side, just like we did in our practice. Now, I'm hoping that my pencil will show on my, yeah, it does. I can see the pencil on my black. Yay. Glad I can see that, makes it easier. And then I'll come in here and I'm gonna go ahead and cut. Flip it around, I have to cut this all. I'm gonna cut it all from with this side up, the black side up, just because that lets me, just tells me which side, which angle I'm dealing with. And you can do 4, you really, like I said, you only need 3 of each. I'm gonna line these up on my cutting mat and I'm going to leave them side A and side B. Now I have to repeat that all with these other strips. So it definitely takes a little bit of effort to do this one. You got to practice, or you get, well, you definitely learn the repetition. It's nice when we see repetition in things, because it's not like you're constantly having to do something, you know, new every cut. It's just a lot of repetitive cuts. You probably could stop after 3. I don't need 4, but you just keep cutting until I've used up all the pieces. Last one. And again, I'm going to do this on side B. Last set of cuts, lining that up at 2 inches. So now I've got those pieces. Now I need my original layout, or I need my base layout. I'm going to move all these pieces off to the side. I am going to use a little bit of repo adhesive and tack my layout down, because I will be needing to use the rulers, the outside edge here, and I don't want my paper sliding around. Okay, so now it's a matter of starting to put things together. So I know I want, if I look at my layout, or I look at my design, you can, I don't think it gives us, does it say specifically where, no, it doesn't necessarily say where to start this. So it really kind of just depends, maybe about 1 inch from the bottom. And you essentially are overlapping. You find your pieces. Once I get my initial thing going here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure and figure out where I need to be. And I might pencil in a very light pencil line that I know I can erase, or I'll use my T-square. You want to remember that they alternate, overlapping. But it's starting to, you can see how it starts to take shape. So that's what it's going to look like. Now I just need to get all my pieces in place. Okay, so now how do we do that? Well, so what I'm going to do here is I've got kind of in general where I want things to be, and I should have found my T-square beforehand, because that will make it easy if you have a T-square to be able to just, find that. All right, so I'm just gonna have to use my ruler to line it up, and that's fine. Looks like I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna have it be no higher than 3 inches. All right, so I'm gonna do a very, very light pencil line at 3 inches. That's where I want the peak of my pieces to be, 3 inches, very light. Okay. The other thing, you guys may have noticed I've got a bunch of X's, right? I've got like basically 6 X's. So I see a quick question. My second purple piece is raw. Green, 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 green. I'm not seeing that it's, oh, okay, I think I see. This one is under, then under, over, under, over. Okay, I fixed it. Okay, all right. So you'll see I actually have 6 set of like X's basically. So when I put this on, this peak here that I see with that needs to be right at 6 inches. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark where 6 inches is. I can actually mark every 2 inches because that should be where my pieces line up. I come over here to 4 inches. I just think this one is a little bit, this one's a little, maybe a little bit trickier. I haven't actually fully made this layout in the sense of like having all the pieces put on. I did play around with it this morning just to make sure I kind of knew what I was doing, but I'm going to mark it at 6 inches every 2 inches just because I would rather have a few more marks in place than maybe I need. Very light with my pencil, I'll be able to come in and erase it. Okay. So now we're going to see how this goes together. My peaks are all going to come in at that along the 3-inch mark. I need to put down this purple strip a little bit more. Probably should have been a little bit more generous with my adhesive on these strips. I do recommend Repo adhesive on the back. Whatever piece is on top, I want to have put that piece down first on the next one because it will be my under. My cat was sitting up here and I have some wayward cat hair. Drawing the pencil lines has definitely helped. You can see I'm going to have a little bit of an alignment issue. Again, when you're cutting segments of things, you know, it's really easy to sometimes you think you get, oh, this one's 2 inches. Oh, the next one is an inch and 3/16 or, you know, 7/16. So I'm a little worried that my pieces are going to get a little bit off. I can see them starting to get a little bit off. My angles are fine. It's my width that, like, these purple pieces are just not quite where I want them to be. Okay. Orange and my yellow ones, I appear to have maybe cut those a little bit more generous when I was slicing those in segments. Well, there, it's not coming over. It's not reaching that. The big part is definitely going to be is just to have those, your tops, so you know where to meet at the top. I am going to be a little bit short. I can tell you when I get over to this edge, I'm going to be short. All right. So what I could do is I could just come over here on this side and trim these a little bit. Maybe I would even come in and just make them flush with my paper here so it looks like it's tucked in under the borders. So if you do find yourself in that situation where you're coming up a little bit short, you know, you kind of just make a note for next time that you need to go ahead and trim those pieces a little bit, maybe, you know, I don't know, a little bit longer, because I'm coming up about a 1/4 inch short. I could probably, if I needed to, I could come in like with one of my scrap pieces and, well, first of all, I could see if any of my other pieces are longer. Or here's what I probably should have done is only cut 3. Leave the 4th one that you cut alone. Don't cut it from the main. Don't cut it into 2 inches. Because if I had left this longer, I could have just put that final piece on and cut it manually. All right. So put that note in here. Only cut 3 2-inch segments from each side, each of your strips. You'll end up with just the 6 segments that you need to make your zigzag. You'll then come over, you'll have a full extra piece that's longer that you can use to do any of those like little boo-boos. Nope, this one goes in first. I'm gonna make it work because I'm gonna come in right here and I'm just gonna take my little extra piece, put some adhesive right there, put it on. I have to lift the whole thing off of my background and then slice. It's not ideal, but visually overall, you don't really notice that I did that. But there you can see we've got this whole kit and caboodle all together lovely like. It's great because I can come in with some different angles if I want to, but it is definitely the zigzaggy thing going, all right? Oh, okay. So I'm going to show you guys next a way to do something similar, a little bit different looking. Like this is really neat how it's like those 3 colors all intertwined together. It really is pretty cool. Now, if we wanted to make it a little bit more simple, we can do it with our pattern paper, and it's pretty lickety split on how we can do this part. Okay. So here we are going to need, we're going to need to cut about a 3.5 inch wide strip of paper, 3.5 by 12, so that we can do these 2 interlocking 3-inch zigzags, basically. So I have chosen, I'm just going to make the same one I made over here. And to do that, I need my star paper and the stripes on the back. And this is where I messed up before, and I cut the other piece I had the wrong direction. So I had to cut my second piece of paper. If you do have stripes that you want to use, you want to make sure that you're cutting so that your stripes are perpendicular to your cut. And I'm going to cut this at 3.5 inches. I do not have instructions for this. I will try to type them up and add them to the blog. I was working on this last night and I really did not want to sit there and make a handout. So I've got 3.5 inches. I'm going to need my scoring blade. We're going to score. A couple power hours ago, we did something similar where we created some zigzags that we then just put in order on the background of a layout. This time we're going to weave them together, the zigzags. So I've got my scoring blade on here. I've got a 12 inch long by 3.5 inch tall piece of paper. It's double-sided. And I am going to line up my piece here at 6 inches. I'm going to score at 6 inches. I'm going to move my paper over. I'm going to score 2 inches in each direction from the middle. So I'm here, I've lined it up at 8 inches. I'll line it up at 10. I'm going to come back. I'm going to skip 6. I've already scored there. Now I'm going to come down to 4 inches. And my last one will be at 2 inches. So I will have a score at every 2 inches. Then I can fold. I'm going to fold in a zigzag fashion. Let's see. Got a zigzag, lovely zigzag. Okay. Now before, when I showed this technique, when we did it for power hour, we used the 45-degree angle line. You can do the same thing. If you don't want to mess with the 30 degrees, you can do a 45. What it's going to give you is we have built diamonds. You can see diamonds, right? The diamond effect going on. If you do 45 degrees, you're basically going to create squares instead of diamonds. It's going to have an overall squarish effect to it. But with the 30-degree line, we're going to create more of a diamond effect. So with my folded piece of paper, I'm going to go ahead. I've got some repo adhesive on my mat. I'm going to do the same thing we did before. I'm going to grab my ruler. I'm going to line up. It doesn't matter which your fold edge. You just want to go ahead and line this up on that 30-degree line. And you want to cut. Or you want to measure, mark and measure. You just want to put your ruler down and you want to put a mark in place with your pencil. You do want to come over here as close to the edge as you can. We will be able to get 3/4 inch strips out of this, this 3.5. Basically the wider we had made this, the more strips we would be able to cut. You'll see that in a second. 3.5 is going to get us those 2 3/4 inch strips that we need for this similar effect. I would not go, when you're making these cuts, I would not go any wider than 3/4 inch. You could go a little narrower. You could go 1/2 inch if you wanted to, but I would not go any wider than 3/4 inch. So now I'm going to cut this. I put in my straight blade. I could use a decorative blade. I recommend using the straight blade though, because you might have to pass over twice. And sometimes that can get a little crazy if you use a decorative blade. There's one cut. I'm going to push this over to 3/4 inch, lining it up at 3/4 inch. I'm going to come back and I'm going to cut again. There's one. Now I'm going to push it over and do this again. You can see I've got just enough to hold on to. I don't have a lot of excess here. So you can do 3/4 inch, 2 3/4 inch pieces if you have a 3.5 inch wide strip to begin with. Okay, go ahead. There we go. What I'm looking for is those 2 3-inch or 2 zigzags. And here we go. We can see Now I'll be able to flip one around, and again, I can start to kind of play with how they interlock with each other. So you can get a similar look, if I can do this right. You can get a similar look by just playing with strips of paper rather than individual segments. So if you're thinking, oh my gosh, that segmentation, I love the zigzag, or I love the zigzag look, but I didn't necessarily want to make the segments. You certainly could do this way. So you've got an additional option. And then I just mounted it to a piece of paper there, put that together, kind of hinted at the diamond thing in here with the stickers and so forth. Layout here, so cute with those. I do like the way the stripes, it definitely has a little bit of a different look to it. It really feels like everything, you know, especially the way the stripes are, that everything is really twisted together. Over here, I think you can definitely, well, part of it is because I used the stripe, the way that this pattern lines up, and it definitely just feels like they're just kind of woven together as compared to twisted. I don't know. Definitely a little bit different there, but I will have some more directions. It'll take me a little bit. I got a project I got to do this afternoon or something going on. I will try to get some more directions so you guys can see what measurements if you're wanting to create this layout. It's pretty easy once you get past creating those zigzag pieces, putting them in place. I added some stitching detail because I thought it was cute. You can see I did a little zigzag, and there's the cute cat. So looking forward to trick-or-treating for sure. Got lots of fun things to be, our layouts ready to go. I've got some vertical ones. I had to have some vertical pictures on a layout because the last one I shared, like I shared earlier this week, has a lot of squares, but I felt like I needed something that was the vertical. All right. Okay. So there we go. Hopefully that wasn't too overwhelming. Some options there for you to play with. I do recommend, even for this technique I just showed you, practice. You can practice with regular. You could use, oh, where is it? Just some, the paper here like this. You just want to make sure you're using lighter weight paper. So designer paper or lightweight shimmer papers, those will work. You just want to make sure you're using a lighter weight paper if you're going to do the score and cut technique, because you need to be able to fold it. And the cardstock folds, but it's a lot of thicker layers to have to cut through. So the thinner paper works a little bit better. All right. And so I think that's all I've got there for you guys. I'm looking to see, so for yesterday's, for any of these layouts, you could definitely just carry over into a second page. You can, if you have it vertical, if you do your the border vertical, because you're thinking, I do not want to do this again, but I want to carry it over. Probably what I would have done is I would have this be vertical, right? And then I would have a second sheet of paper over here, and I would have just kept the outside border going all the way around it. And so you're investing your time to create this lovely piece, but you don't feel like you have to do two of them for the second border. And the same thing for the one that I just showed you. You could just have it be on one side and then just extend your the paper over and just do the frame technique on the outer edges, keeping the middle where basically where they meet in the middle, keep that open. So it just gives that illusion that you have that background going across both pages, and then you have lots of room to fill in with photos. All right, so fun times. Hopefully you guys saw there is going to be an album promo next week. Creative Memories has 4 different albums that you can choose from if you place an order of $100 or more. In shocking news, they are retiring the 12-inch decorative trimmer. My heart's broken. I've ordered some already. I've ordered some replacement blades. I will have some in my inventory if they happen to sell out and you come back later and you need more. But you know, if you do have one and you do love it, you might want to put the blades in your shopping cart for the next time you check out, because they are retiring the blades as well. So that will be the decorative trimmer itself should last you years. I know many people are using their original darker blue one, but the blades are the one that do kind of wear out over time. So you may want to stock up on another, like a 2-pack of blades. Push comes to shove, you can change your blades back and forth between the wave and the swell edge. So that kind of fun things there. Next, the secret box has sold out. We have a couple more weeks. 2 weeks from today is when the virtual crop will be for that. Black Friday's coming up. I don't know when that will start for sure, but that is coming up. They did kind of tell us that the album covers are a little hint. The promo album covers are a little bit of a hint at what's to come in those Black Friday specials. So that can be very exciting. And Jennifer is asking if they will be coming out with a new decorative trimmer. Right now, no. They do not plan to replace it. It's an overall has been kind of a slower seller for them. A lot of people have it. They've had it for years. They didn't necessarily need to buy a new one when they came out with the white one. So I would not expect to see one anytime soon. I will be begging and pleading for them to come out with a revised, maybe some new designs. I don't know. I love it. The ease of it is so wonderful. We do have the custom cutting system. And I know sometimes I think they balance, like what can you do with the decorative trimmer or that style of trimmer versus what can you do with a custom cutting system. So maybe they'll be playing around with that a little bit more. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of other announcements for you guys. That's pretty much it. I plan to be back next week with Scrapbook Live on November 1st. Hard to believe we're talking about November 1st already, but maybe I'll have some fun stories from Trick or Treat the night before. I don't know. Maybe I'll be on a candy hangover. So, but I will plan to see you guys all next week. But thanks for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful weekend.